Good afternoon, everybody. This is Krista with Magnolia Ridge Farm and Gardens. Welcome to my channel. If you are returning, thank you so much for joining me. And if you are finding me and are new here, I would appreciate a hit that subscribe button. I would love to grow this channel a little bit more. I try to post at least once a week. I am going to try to build that up a little bit with fall coming. The kids will be back in school. I'll get on more of a routine, and hopefully I'll be able to spend a little more time at the computer editing than I have been this summer. So what I want to talk to you today is fall gardening. I know I don't always sit in my dining room at my table. I'm more of a in the kitchen kind of person, but I do want to go over my plans for the fall garden. If you have not thought about a fall garden, now would be the time to do so. We are at the beginning of August, and usually you start thinking about the fall garden about mid to late July. I am in Zone 7B in North Carolina, and so what that means is my average first frost date is somewhere around October 28th. Every now and then we get an early one. Most of the time we get a heavy frost after, the second week of November. But we can get especially light frosts around the end of October. Usually we can, cover up some dwindling tomato plants or something like that and get them through. But the majority of the time, most of our summer crops and tomato plants are pretty much done by then. Every now and then I will have some new tomato plants that I started like right about now from suckers that I pinched off and stuck in the ground. I might have a couple of those that I try to get through to ripen some fruit, but that's about it. Anyway, so as my typical the past couple years, I'm always a couple weeks behind, it seems, on getting my garden ready, though I actually thought about it a couple weeks ago, but we had kids at camp and the husband at camp and I was traveling, and it's just been a little chaotic here. So I was able to sit down the past couple days and actually get my plan in place. So what that looks like for me is basically a deep dive into my seed dresser, which I have a small dresser that I got from Hobby Lobby. It's really cute, and each drawer is a different type of seed. So rather than pull my drawers out and go plant by that, what I try to do is, and this is just my method, I know a lot of people use, baskets or the plastic cases that you get at Amazon and put their seeds in each one so they can just take that whole thing in the garden. That doesn't really work for me. One, I have entirely too many seeds for one of those, or two of those, or even three of those. So if I'm going to have 3 storage containers that I'm going to be lugging around, I'd rather just keep them in a dresser. My seeds stay dark, they stay in the house, they stay at an even temperature. And then what I do is I pull out my drawers, sit at my table right here, and I decide what I want to plant. And I use plastic baggies, and I will reuse these because what happens is, like for my fall garden, I'm able to a lot of times just pull the ones I had for the spring garden out because it's the same crops. We're really repeating the spring garden for the most part. And so I can adjust what's in the bags. So here's what I am doing. And these fell over. But here is what I will use instead. So now I have this that I can tote back and forth. But even still, I don't even have to tote this whole thing back and forth because I can just grab what I need for that particular time. So, for example, the bush peas I'm going to put in, and I've even written it on here, late August. So, in late August, when I go out to plant these, I can just grab these 2 packages and be done. So, what I did is I went through all my drawers and pulled out all the seed packets that I wanted to plant, all the varieties, because sometimes I do different varieties in the fall than I do in the spring, because I have some varieties of carrots and things that do a little bit better with the heat. So you want to plant those in the spring. because you're going into summer, so they're going to get the heat on the tail end. And then I have some varieties of things that do better and have better flavor when they get hit with the cold and the frost or over winter, since we have mostly a mild winter here. So I like to plant those in the fall. So even though I'm planting, carrots in the spring and carrots in the fall, there's sometimes different varieties that I plant. And since I have a lot of varieties, that's one of the ways that I utilize my space in my garden to get all the varieties in. That way I'm not planting the exact same thing. I'm still getting a crop of carrots, but I'm getting a variety that is more suitable to that time of year. So after I pull out all the different ones that I want to use, I go through and I make my list. And I'm sure there's plenty of better ways to do this. I could even do this on Excel. But for me, sitting here at my dining room table, I am a notebook person. I write. I love to write things down, because when I write things down, then I tend to remember it and it gets in my head. Whereas if I just type it or put it on my phone, I don't remember it for some reason. So I still like to write things down. I have tons of these notebooks. I fill one up, file it, go to the next one. So this is my list that I have made, and each category here. So I have celery, chard, kale, and then I have which varieties I'm planting for this fall. And then over here in the margin, I have when it needs to be planted, or if I need to start seeds, I put them over here. So for example, the Utah celery, I need to go ahead and start the seeds now. And then chard, I'm planting the Ford Hook Giant and the Ruby Red. I am not a big chard fan. Did not plant it last year, but it does really well here. So same with kale. Like, I have planted kale before, did not really use it. However, I have a few recipes now that I can use the kale and possibly the chard in. So I'm going to plant that again because I have the seeds for it. I didn't have to buy any because, like Baker Creek, one of their favorite things to send out there for a while was the Russian red kale. So I have several varieties of kale that were like free. So I'm going to do that again this year. And I figure the worst case scenario, because it's super hardy here and will usually go all the way through, is it'll be great to give my chickens and my goats fresh greens through the fall, late fall and winter. So I've decided that that is worth garden space for me, just even if I don't use much of it, just to have a really good fresh source of greens for my animals, because it does typically do really well here and it's easy to grow and I have a ton of seeds for it. So that's something to think about too. If you have the space, which I have a very large garden now, if you have the space, go ahead and plant some extra for animals. So then I have on here things that I need to plant now, because you really need to plant them in late July. I need to go ahead and get those in the ground. So I have circled those so that I can get those in the ground now, which I am planning to over the next couple of days. We do have some rain coming in, but I'm planning on cleaning out some more beds. We've got some potatoes to harvest, so that will be a free bed. I have one bed of squash plants that have succumbed to the squash bugs, so that bed will be freed up. So I just need to go out and do a little maintenance on a few beds, throw some compost and some fertilizer in, and they're ready to go because I don't have a lot of weeds in them. All right, so I'm just going to run through what I'm doing really quick, and I think I'll just read it off my list since I have it nice and organized. But again, it's all by the bag, so I can just come in here and grab the bag. So, this is the cabbage varieties. This is the broccoli varieties. So that is what that is. So I'm not going to go through that once I've showed you that. I'm just going to kind of go through what I've decided to plant. So we talked about the celery and the chard and the kale. I'm going to try turnips this year. I've never been a big turnip fan. My dad loves them. I like the greens from them though, so I figured that was worth it to me. But I think my husband likes them, so I think I'm going to try them. Well, I know I'm going to try them this year. I know when I was growing up, my mom did like stewed turnips, and my dad loved that. It's been years since I've had that. So I may try it just to see, because I know my tastes have changed, especially since having the CV, the big pandemic stuff that we had recently. My tastes have changed some, so maybe in my 40s I'll like turnips. I didn't like them when I was 10. I do know that. On that same vein, I'm going to try kohlrabi again. I have grown it before and it did really well, but I didn't use it very much. And then the same with rutabaga. I know that's kind of in that turnip family as well. I want to go ahead and try that because I've heard good things about that. So I'm thinking I might like that if I don't like the turnips, because I don't think it has as pungent of a flavor to it. I'm going to plant more beets. I did really well with beets this year, and I have decided I love beets now. Never liked them before, but the only way I ate them was pickled. But I have found that I adore them roasted. So, and I have been sharing my beet harvest with my parents because they had a groundhog that ate all of their beets. So I am going to grow a lot more beets this fall. And then I will grow a few radish. I'm not crazy about radish. I have always grown radishes. My husband likes them. My daughter likes them. And we will put them like in some salads. I do like them okay roasted. But I don't know. I'm just not the biggest fan. But I have, again, a ton of seeds for them. So I will grow a few just because there are people in my family who like them. But I'm not going to grow as many as I have in the past. So let me step back just a second. The kohlrabi ones that I'm going to grow this year are the white Vienna and the quick star. Turnips, the purple top and the golden ball. Rutabagas, the purple top and the Navone yellow, which I thought it was interesting that the rutabaga and the turnips both have a purple top variety. So I wonder how close those two are to each other. Beets, I have a unknown. It's some that I saved, so I don't know what they are. I just wrote beets on them. And then I have Detroit Red, the sugar beets, which is new for me, the Chioggia, which is one of my favorite, and a mix, which has my Detroit yellows, which are like my absolute favorite. I don't have any of them by themselves. The radish, I'm going to do the China Rose, the French Breakfast, and some wasabi radish. I thought that would be interesting. I do have a package of those from Baker Creek that was free. And I know wasabi that they make like the sauce out of is a pea, I think. So I guess the wasabi radish may have kind of that wasabi bite to it. I'm not sure, but we're going to try it. I thought that might be a neat idea and maybe something that I can handle, the wasabi. Carrots, we're going to do Cosmic Purple, Chantenay, Gold Nugget, Parisian Hercules, St. Valerie, one of my favorite, the New Carota. That one has been a good one for me. The Parisian has been a good for me. And the Chantenay has been good for me. And the Little Fingers. Well, hello. How are you? Okay. And then those are going in mid-August. The radish can go in now. The beets will go in September. Rutabaga, kohlrabi, turnips I need to get in ASAP. The celery, chard, and kale I need to do soon too. We're going to try some mid and short day onions. I usually try to do like the Walla Wallas and things like that, but they are a long day onion. But I have heard that you can put in the midday or the short day onions in our zone now and harvest through the winter. So I went through all of my onions to find my short day and midday varieties. And I have the Texas Grano 502, the candy onions, the Savannah Sweet, and the Flat of Italy plus some leeks. So the candy onions and the Flat of Italy are midday onions, And the 502s and the Savannah Sweet are short days. And then, of course, the leeks. So I need to start the seeds now so that I can get those planted out in September, late September, early October. Broccoli, I'm going to try the Green Magic and the Deciso, which I have grown both of those. The Calabrese and the Waltham. I have grown all of those varieties. So I'm going to get, those should have been in July 15th to August 15th. So I have a little bit more time. I would probably have rather started them from seed in July and then planted them out in August. But I am going to go ahead and just direct sow those. Parsnips, I'm going to try those. I do still have some parsnips that I put in the spring, but I only had a few come up. They are still out there growing. So I'm going to put in some more of the Harris and the All-American and see how they do as a fall crop, because I've never grown parsnips until this year. The cabbage should have been put in mid-July along with the Brussels sprouts. So I need to get those in now. And the varieties that I'm going to do are the Long Island Brussels sprouts, the Copenhagen, the Flat Dutch, the Charleston, Wakefield, Savoy, Wisconsin, and Red Acre. I'm just going to do a variety. That way I have some of the larger ones, some of the smaller head ones, and since they're going in late, hopefully I'll get some. Again, worst case scenario, they don't head up, we get a hit by a freeze, I'll give them to the chickens. Greens, which will go in September 1st through September 15th. I'm going to do the Chijimsai. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's a free variety that Baker Creek sent out. The Georgia and the Vates are typical for this area and do really well here. And the Broadleaf Mustard is another free one that I got through. I'm not sure who I got that one through. Spinach, I do love some spinach, and I did not grow it this year, so I am going to grow some for the fall, and that is a good one to preserve because you can kind of cook it and freeze it. So we're going to do the Bloomsdale Long, the Sun Angel F1, and the SP1F Hybrid, which is one I got free through the local university. It's something that they were sending out through one of their departments. And then the Giant Noble. I've grown the Giant Noble before. And so I think those are seeds that I saved on my own. And then lettuce. I actually seeded some lettuce in late July. And it has not come up. I think it was too dry. I put it under my cucamelon trellis, thinking that the shade might work well for it. But it never came up. So I'm going to start some more in late August, early September. I'm going to do a salad blend, the Grand Rapids, some tennis ball, Landis Winter, black-seeded Simpson, slow bolt arugula, the bronze mignonette, and some romaine. And then in late August, I will plant peas, and the vine varieties I will do are the Melting Sugar, the Super Sugar, and the Alaska English. And then the bush varieties I'm going to try are the Oregon Sugar, the Dwarf Gray Sugar, and the Cascadia Sugar. And then, again, for some reason I have parsnips down here as well. So, that's it. That is all I'm planting for the fall. And we have right now, we have about 12 weeks till our first frost, and 89 days roughly to our first frost. So I can still put in squash and zucchini. I could still put in some cucumbers and some green beans, but I just planted green beans a few weeks ago. I did not plant them in the spring. I waited until my peas were done. And as I pulled my peas off the trellises, I put the green beans on the trellises, which are the half runner variety, so they are just starting to bloom. I also put in a bunch of cucumbers and bush beans, I want to say early July, because some of my transplants did not do well because we had a really bad drought, and I did not have irrigation set up in the new garden part, so that I couldn't get them very well. So I started some more, and they are actually taking off there. I've got beans out there. I've got cucumbers out there. So I'm just now getting those in. So I am not going to replant those. I may put in one or two more squash or zucchini plants. The ones that I have, of course, have succumbed to the squash bugs, but my dad is still getting them in, and I have a row of squash and plants that I planted at his house because I had extra plants. And so he had room, so I took them up there. So I've been getting a lot of squash and zucchini through him. So I have not decided if I'm going to throw a couple more plants in somewhere of those. I think it may depend at the end of August. If I have room, I might throw some in because I could still get some harvest before the end of October on those. But again, I've actually put away quite a bit of that already this year. So it may just depend on how much space I have. I want to get all of this in. So I know that was a lot of information, but I want to encourage you. I know some people are getting really tired of gardening at this time of year. I had a rough summer with some health issues, so I was not able to do as much in my garden as I wanted to. I still have a lot out there, and I did try to maintain it as well as I could. I have a couple areas that have gotten a little weedy, but actually not bad. But what I had was some stunted plants where I could not irrigate them in the new garden part as well as I would like. And so like I planted some seedlings and they just never took off. I have, this 90-foot row of tomato plants, and the first 25 feet, they're still like this tall. They went in like this tall. They're still this tall. No blooms, no bushing, no growth. They're just like, they look okay, but they're not growing. So I have fertilized. I have put water to them. We have now finally gotten some rain. And, I have two 90-foot rows of tomatoes out there, plus a couple beds and, tomatoes in the old garden. So I have spots where they're just lush and beautiful. And then I have spots where one or two died, just completely killed over. And then some are stunted. And so it's just spotty. So I have some, though, that have taken off. And I am probably going to be getting tomatoes very, very soon. And I have some out there that have been dropping blossoms because it was just so hot and dry. So they may actually, now that we've got some rain and we've cooled down below the 90s, and in the next 10 days, we only have one day that's going to be 90 degrees and the rest are like mid 80s. So I have a feeling the ones that have been dropping blossoms and not producing, they are going to start taking off. So I will probably have quite a few tomatoes over the next few months. My tomato harvest is going to be late, but I think the ones that I have left are going to make it through, and I still have easily 75 to maybe 100 tomato plants out there that are not dead. So I think we'll be okay with that. So I still, like, my garden is still rolling pretty good. My peppers are coming on. They're growing. I have some wiregrass issues in the pepper beds, but I knew I would when I put them there because those two beds have wiregrass issue anyway. And I wasn't able to stay on top of it like I liked. But my peppers are still doing good. The only thing that has really kicked the bucket are the squash. And then I had a couple pumpkin plants that they never took off. The squash bugs got them immediately. And that's usually what happens in my garden. So the fact that I did get some squash this year is pretty amazing. So yeah, as far as, I had some cucumbers die off early, but I think, they never took off from being transplanted. And that was a heat and drought issue as well. So, my okra has not grown very well. Like, it has come up and it has just stayed really small. But yeah, I've had a few little things, but everything else that I have planted for summer garden, like I said, it's still doing good. My sweet potatoes are doing great. The peppers are doing good. The cucamelons have taken off. The second round of cucumbers and beans that I put in are doing fantastic. Some of my basil plants I did lose, but then some of the ones that I put in the back garden, they're doing great. So yeah, I just need to get out there and finish harvesting carrots and beets from the spring garden, pull them out, and get another round of those in. There's a couple cabbages still out there that I left to see if they would grow more, but the bugs have found them. So I think one of them's good and one of them's I need to toss to the chickens. But yeah, so my garden is still doing pretty good. Like, it got a late start and then the heat hit, but now that heat, we've had a break in it, I'm hoping it's, and it is showing signs that it's going to take off and flourish, whereas everyone else's was flourishing at the beginning of July. Mine is delayed, but it was delayed in planting as well. So that's a lot of the reasons. But I'm super excited. I have not gotten where I'm burnt out on the garden like a lot of people, because I wasn't in it. There wasn't a lot for me to do in July because it was just there. And then I had the medical issues and I couldn't really go out in the heat. So I was just spending a little bit of time in the early morning and the late evening. And so now that we've got a little bit cooler, like, I am so looking forward to September and October when it's not as hot and I won't have the skin issues as bad in the heat. So I am really looking forward to the fall garden. And I have decided that the spring and the fall garden are actually my favorite. The vegetables that you grow in the spring and the fall, I think, are my favorite vegetables. I mean, everybody loves to grow tomato plants, but I don't actually like keeping up the tomato plants, and I ended up letting them grow wild this year. I put some stakes in, have not tied off a single tomato plant. So that's been a fun experiment. I will probably get out there and tie off some of the bigger ones that have stakes next to them, just to help with the disease issues now that they're getting really big. But it's been an interesting garden year for me. But now I'm in the canning and preserving phase and then switching over to the fall garden, which is one of my absolute favorites. So I'm ready to go. So this was a lot of words. Like, I just feel like I just went bleh, and, word vomit or whatever you want to say all over you. So I don't know if this was super, super helpful, but I do hope, if you made it this far, that it encourages you to get out there and do a fall garden, even if it's just a little bit. If you have 6 raised beds or, 10 buckets, do a couple. Do a couple for the fall. I think you'll enjoy it. I feel like the fall garden is more hands-off. The weed pressure cuts back. The bug pressure cuts back. The temperatures are more enjoyable. The days are shorter. But I really encourage you to try some fall plantings and extend that garden season, especially if you're here in the South, because we have a nice mild time of it. So thank you for joining me. I still have a backlog of video clips and videos and some blueberry recipes and things like that I'm going to work on and get out to you. Again, I'm trying to do the once a week thing, but I'm hoping to increase that as we go into fall. And, my kids are back in school and things like that. Can you believe that summer is over? Like, I feel like fall is happening now. This cool spell, I know, is a teaser. But the kids start back to school in like a week and a half. And so we are full on school prep and, getting book bags out and getting school clothes ready and, all of that stuff. So, yeah, like, I've even started decorating for fall, but we're not going to talk about that. In my opinion, once pumpkins start coming in the garden, to me, that is a sign that it is okay to decorate for fall because I have pumpkins. So, grab a cup of coffee, plant a fall garden, and I will see you on the next video. Bye, guys.